Hi all, my name is Davis and welcome to the Tech Hot Takes, the show where we take a look at the worst things that have happened in the world of tech over the past week and see how the people of the internet reacted to them. And yes, the comment section is always such a lovely forgiving place, isn't it? Last week, Creeper12 said about my show, D1 rage bait. Well, that's kind of the whole point, isn't it? It's a little bit boring if I only show the nice news that happen in tech, but even so, I do try to provide a little bit of balance. Sometimes. Anyway, let's see what we've got on this week. And this week we have a lot of disappointed tech fans, starting with Samsung. And oh dear, it appears as though that they are completely out of ideas. The new Edge model has been leaked and it looks so mid that you have to question why they even bothered. And the newly leaked Fold 7 just appears to be playing catch up as well. And talking about playing catch up, Apple is rumored once again to be working on a foldable, albeit one that will be creaseless at all costs. Is this too little, too late? I guess we'll see. We are also talking about Tesla's sales, which have dropped by half in Europe, a camera that is designed to flop on purpose, and a new smart ring that is so ridiculous that it has gone viral. In addition to that, we are also talking about BlackBerry's comeback-ish, kind of. Not at all, really. If you enjoy my negative energy and want to see more of it, then please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. And that way, you can make my day just a little bit better. And the first story, oh dear. It really looks like that Samsung has completely run out of ideas, and the Galaxy S25 Edge seems to be the culmination of their general lack of ambition and general ambivalence to their customers. Remember the old Galaxy Edge devices from 10 years ago? Man, they were exciting. The first time that I saw the waterfall edge on the Note Edge in 2014, it was a moment that I literally would never forget. In a world of flat, boring LCD smartphones, the idea that you could have a screen that was curved was just so exciting. I mean, sure, it wasn't very useful, and nor were there any particularly good, but they were so much fun. And all of the Edge smartphones that they would release for the following few years were so distinctively Samsung that I genuinely felt sad when they gradually adopted the same boring flat displays of their competitors. So to bring the Edge name back was a really bold choice, especially when in our minds we had all associated the term with excitement and technical innovation. And so that is why we were all collectively disappointed when the S25 Edge was announced earlier this year, and it just looked like a normal Galaxy S25 that was only a tiny bit thinner. And the leaks that came out this week, let's just say that they didn't help. Hajali says, calling it Edge without the iconic curved edge is absolutely crazy. Representative Girl 71 says, why is it called Edge? Where is the edge? I mean, it literally just feels like that Samsung heard rumors about an upcoming iPhone Air model and they just scrambled to do anything they could to respond to it. And what did we discover from the leaks this week though? Well, it looks remarkably similar to the Z Fold 6, and quite concerningly, it only has a 4000 milliamp battery, which is not massive for a phone of this size. I guess that it's all a sacrifice to keep it as thin as possible, right? Well, not really. It isn't even all that slim. It's 6.4 millimeters compared to 7.2 of the standard Galaxy S25. Alpo Internet says, is it just me? But I feel that this phone isn't even that thin. If you're going to make a thin phone, just make it really thin, or just don't. Yeah, it's less than a millimeter thinner than the standard model, which I imagine would actually be a little bit difficult to discern in the real world. And it's a far cry from, let's say, the 4.8 millimeters of the Oppo R5 from 2014. Now that was a properly thin phone. Humbo says, a truly terrible idea. It costs more than the S25 Plus, lol. I don't think that anyone has an issue with the thinness of the S25. It's pretty damn thin already. But people will have an issue with this lacking a camera and the way lower battery size. Samsung are just wasting their money here. And I happen to agree. If they wanted to make a thin phone, just make it properly different from the other phones. Don't just take features away for the hell of it. Okay, so you might be saying that this lack of excitement and innovation is fine. Samsung is after all just iterating on their slab devices, as all of the focus is on their foldables now. Well, the Galaxy Fold 7 was leaked this week, and yikes, the internet is not impressed. And that is largely because it looks basically the same as the Galaxy Fold 6 SE. Kawaii Not Kawaii says, "Holy Batman, Samsung, what a pathetic company they've become. The only thing saving them is the fact that Chinese manufacturers can't really sell officially in the West, otherwise they would be toast right now." BMX Biker, in response to one of these Chinese phones, says, "I just want a US release of the Oppo Find N5. They actually made significant improvements. Edit, it's actually the first phone I've genuinely been excited about buying in a long time." FD Pro says, "Still having a 4400 mAh battery is crazy." And finally, Appropriate Rain 770 says, "Lol, they're shaving a full millimeter from the thickness." Okay, so that was a lot of hate clumped together in a very condensed form. And I do know that it is popular sort of being on the Samsung hate train at the moment, but I just want to take a step back and defend them just a little bit. Just a little. Firstly, people are complaining about the fact that the Fold 7 is not all that thin, as it is thicker than the Oppo Find N6. But the thing is, it's only going to be 4.5mm thick when unfolded versus 4.2 of the Oppo. Are we really saying that 0.3 of a millimeter is a massive difference? Because I don't really think so, especially when we compare it to the 5.6mm of the original Fold 6, remembering that the thickness doubles when the phone is closed. I think that the 1mm thinner than its predecessor is actually pretty impressive. And people are also complaining about the battery size. Well, to be fair, it is just Samsung being conservative. Do we really need another Note 7 explosion situation? I don't really think so. And the upgrades to the efficiency in the S25 line, well, hopefully they can bring some of those improvements to the Fold 2. I feel that while the changes are not groundbreaking, the updated camera, larger and wider displays, and thinner design of the Fold 7 actually makes it one of the larger updates for the Fold line that we've had in quite a few years, and it should hopefully hold up quite nicely against the Oppo. But even so, I do admit that it does feel like that Samsung is mostly just playing catch up this year. And talking about catching up to the competition, just listen to this next story. It's been almost 6 years since the release of the original Samsung Galaxy Fold, and Apple is only now finally rumored to be creating a folding iPhone. Except this latest report suggests that it won't have a crease, and Apple will be doing everything that they can to avoid having one. Apple is so adamant that this new iPhone won't have a crease that they are relying on a brand new material to make the crease disappear. And this will be the main way that they're going to stand up to the far more established competition. And what's really interesting about this story is that not only are they going to be making a Galaxy Fold style foldable with a wider aspect ratio, and not only is it supposedly going to be arriving next year, but they are actually working with Samsung to bring this new material technology to life. Yep, so Apple is going to get this new screen technology first, not Samsung's phone division. Despite all this, Substance90 says, "I can already see the Creasegate titles in about 2 years' time." Yet the thing is that when new, most foldables don't often have a very visible crease, but with age and more folds, the crease does get more and more visible over time. That's what happened to both the Razr and Oppo flip phones that I've used. MacFax says, "The competition already has creaseless foldables," showing the new N5 Fold. And I'm afraid that this creaseless beauty probably won't last long. Fat Tribble says, "Meh, I kind of like that my current iPhone doesn't need to be unfolded every time I use it." Well, have you heard about front displays? I have to be honest, when I used my Razr, I probably used the front screen more than the inner one. It really was that good, and it wasn't even a book style foldable. And finally, Tech Runner says, "As someone who had a Z Flip 4 for 2 years plus, I would be very interested in an iPhone Flip. The pocketability of my caseless Z Flip was such a joy, it literally disappeared in my pocket." Well, that wasn't my experience with flip-style foldables. While the footprint would themselves be quite small, when closed, they actually did create quite an uncomfortable fat lump in your pocket. So I'm not really convinced by that argument. But the idea of having an iPad mini with me all the time is something that I can definitely get behind. So it sounds like a win from me. Next up, we have some absolutely tragic news. This year, Tesla's sales have dropped in the EU by 50%. Now, I don't know why, but this just brings glee to my eyes. And this follows a 33% drop in Australia as well. And we can attribute this to a variety of reasons. Mora says, let's hope for 100% down in February. Okay, so that's a little bit extreme, but there's no surprise as to why Tesla has been dropping sales so much recently. Competition in the electric car market has been so fierce, and it isn't growing nearly as quickly as most people had predicted. And we are also seeing multiple very sharply priced Chinese brands being introduced, while also competing against the electric onslaught of established car manufacturers. And Tesla, who hasn't really introduced a new car model in a long time, is just getting forgotten really. Both the absolutely ancient Model S and X are being phased out of a variety of markets, and the Model 3 and Y, even with the facelifts, are sort of old news. And there's also the angle of Musk's recent controversies, which are especially unpopular in Germany. And while I don't think that they really contributed too much to the drop in sales, I do believe that Tesla's product offerings are very much at odds to the very macho right-wing image that Musk is trying to portray in the US. If he actually wanted sales, I suspect that a V8 Cybertruck would do far better than an electric Model 3. Careless Fly 1096 says they'll likely drop even further. Musk was once viewed in some circles as an eccentric pioneer who really cared for the environment, among other things. And that image is now shattered, and he's rightly perceived as a petty little man with low self-esteem, focused on hurting the people he dislikes. Nice Personality 5496 meanwhile says, I will never buy another. And Calutech1 from Berlin says, see, boycotts really can work, keep it up. My personal thought is that while I do dislike Musk's politics and his personality for that matter, it really has little effect on whether or not I would choose to buy his cars or not. It's just a shame that I hate them too, I guess. Teslas are bland, they lack personality, they have hateful, cheap interiors, have knobbly rides, and are generally really ugly. I mean, they make fine taxis if that is your thing, but I would hate to buy a car that anyone could mistake for an Uber, but I don't know, that might just be me. And speaking of things I hate, this week the new Sigma BF camera was unveiled, and I feel like that the brand wants it to flop on purpose. So it's a new mirrorless full-frame camera, but it looks as though that it was made by Apple, as in they claim that it's the first aluminium unibody camera in the world, and they've also removed every feature that photographers would typically enjoy. Actually, the first of those statements is a lie. It's not actually the first unibody aluminium camera, because that was the Leica T from 2014, which was a very similar offering because it too removed most of the controls and dials that photographers favored in favor of a touchscreen. And you know what? That camera was an absolute flop because photographers want physical controls and Apple fans, well, they've got their iPhones. Anyway, just to rant a little bit further, this is a new camera that doesn't have a hot shoe, it doesn't have a mechanical shutter, it doesn't have a card slot instead of relying on internal memory, it doesn't have a mic jack, headphone jack, and every time you want to change a control, you have to cycle through the control menu to the one that you want before then adjusting it with a haptic feedback dial. It sounds like a complete nightmare to use, and that's not even mentioning the horrible ergonomics, but you know what? It's probably going to be fine because apparently they can only make 9 of them a day, which should mean that there will be less than 2,000 at launch. So I guess the lack of sales doesn't really matter. About this, Dean says, that's okay, no one's going to buy one anyway. TK meanwhile says, I wish that the bold design and creative thought didn't have to come at the expense of functionality or utility. And Scooty Scoot says, this camera is aimed squarely at folks with a bunch of money who want something to sit on the shelf 99% of the time and maybe gets used once or twice a year. I'm afraid that also applies to most Fuji X100 owners. Next up, this is one of the most ridiculous products that I've ever seen, and I want one so bad. It was unveiled a few months ago, but it's only this week that it's finally going viral. So Casio has come out with a smart ring, and it's by far the dumbest smart ring that I have ever seen. But at the same time, it is by far the most desirable, so much more desirable than an Aura or Ultra Human or something. The reason why it's so cool, well, it is just essentially a miniature version of a classic digital Casio watch, except that you can wear it on your finger. It's just so cute and adorable. Then the best part is that it actually works. All the features work. All 3 buttons work, it tells the time, it's got a calendar, it's got dual time mode, and even a stopwatch. It even has a pulsing light that can glow whenever you like, and that will probably drain the battery in 2 seconds. But there is a slight problem. And as you might expect, being 2025, it is the price. Please fix the comment section says, I would buy one if this were $12. $120 is insane. Except it isn't $120, is it? Because in the world that we live in, this limited edition watch ring thing is on eBay for upwards of $500. I mean, to be fair, that's how much an Aura ring costs. And this is a million times cooler. Someone just please keep me away from eBay because I am this close to getting one. And before we get to the final story, I would like to say that this video is sponsored by the Arc Pulse case that's available for iPhone, Galaxy and Pixel. If you've been like me and just hate phone cases because of how ugly and bulky they are, but you aren't quite brave enough to skip protection altogether, then the Arc Pulse is simply the only acceptable option. Every Arc Pulse is crafted from solid aluminium or titanium, and it comes in 2 pieces and slips onto the top and bottom of your phone with friction alone. There's no nasty adhesives here. Over the past 2 years, I can't describe how many times I've dropped my phone, and I'm glad to say that the case has protected it each and every time. And that's because 99% of the time, it's only the corners that need protection. And this is what the Arc Pulse is best at. So if you want to protect your phone and actually feel it at the same time, you can save 10% using my code Davis10 in the description below. And now for our final story. The BlackBerry Bold is back. Kind of. So over the past few months, I've been using my Clicks keyboard case on and off on my iPhone 16 Pro Max, and while I do love it, the problem is that it's simply ridiculously sized. It simply doesn't fit in my pocket at all, and because it's so tall, the weight distribution is absolutely atrocious as well. But they have solved both of these issues because quite ingeniously this week, they've announced that the Clicks keyboard is coming to the Motorola Razr, and it is absolutely genius because when I reviewed the phone, I was astonished by how usable it was when the screen was flipped closed. But the illusion soon fell apart as soon as you needed to type something. With a Clicks keyboard attached, you practically never have to open the phone, and it keeps the whole thing a reasonable size, sort of similar to an old BlackBerry Bold. If you need a larger screen, all you do is unfold it, and the weight distribution is still kind of okay because the phone is so much lighter than an iPhone Max. I actually tried out the prototype unit briefly last month, and I honestly loved the typing experience so much. WizWR says, crap, this thing actually made me consider a flip phone. And I agree, I never would have actually considered buying a Razr before, but now I just feel like that I need to get one. Travel Barry says, wow, I'd never open that Razr ever in the setup. Kind of can't justify the cost as a result, but wow, I want BlackBerry to come back. Sataranzi says, this looks like a very well designed product that tries to solve a problem that doesn't exist. Well, I feel like that you just missed out on the joy of typing on a QWERTY phone, because typing on a BlackBerry was such a joy that Virtual Keyboard just can never hope to replicate. I can't shake the feeling that maybe Razrs are going to get a whole lot more popular this year. And that, fortunately, brings us to the end of the video. If you somehow managed to enjoy it and somehow want to see more from my channel, be sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. And until next time, I hope that you are having an amazing day, and toodaloo!